Hello everyone, welcome back. So, this fairy tale is called actually The Rose in 12 petals, but it's a little bit longer, so might be in two halves, I'm not sure. Chapter 1, The Witch. The rose has 12 petals. Let the first one fall. Madeline taps the glass bottle, and out tumbles a bit of pink silk that clinks on the table. A chip of tinted glass. No, look closer. A crystallized rose petal. She lifts it into a saucer and crushes it with the back of a spoon till it's reduced to a lump of powder and a puff of fragrance. She looks at the book again. Petal of one rose crushed. Dung of a small bat soaked in vinegar. Not enough light comes through the cottage's small paned windows. And besides, she is growing nearsighted, although she is only 32. She leans close to the page. You should have given her spectacles rather than pearls. She wrinkles her forehead to focus her eyes, which makes her look prematurely old, as in a few years she no doubt will be. Bat dung has a dank, uncomfortable smell, like earth in caves that has never seen sunlight. Can she trust it? This book. £2 10 shillings it cost her, including postage. She remembers the notice in The Gentlewoman's Companion. Every lady her own magician. Confound your enemies, astonish your friends. As simple as a cookery manual. It looks magical enough, with Compendium Magicorum stamped on its spine and gilt pentagrams in its red leather cover, but the back pages advertise a most miraculous lotion that will make any lady's skin so smooth as an infant's bottom, and the collected works of Scott. Not easy to spare 10 shillings, not to mention £2, now that the king has cut off her income. Rather lucky, this cottage coming so cheap, although it has no proper plumbing, just a privy out back among the honeysuckle. Madeleine crumbles a pair of dragonfly wings into the bowl, which is already half full. Orris root, cat's bone found on a village dust heap, oak gall from a branch fallen into a fairy ring, madder, presumably for its colour, crushed rose petal, bat dung, and the magical words. Are they quite correct? Are they? She knows a little Latin, learned from her brother after her mother's death, when her father began spending days in his bedroom with a bottle of beer. She tended the shop, selling flour and printed cloth to the village women, scythes and tobacco to the men, sweets to the children on the way to school. When her brother came home, he would sit at the counter beside her, saying, Is amor amas, the silver cross he earned by taking a Hibernian bayonet in the throat, is the only necklace she now wears. She binds the mixture with water from a hollow stone and her own saliva. Not pleasant, this. She was brought up not to spit, but she imagines she's spitting into a king's face. That first time when he came into the shop, and leaned on the counter, and smiled through his golden beard. If I had known there was such a pretty shopkeeper in this village, I would have done my own shopping a long time ago. She remembers the buttocks covered with golden hair among folds of white linen, like twin halves of a peach on a napkin. Come here, Madeline. The sounds of the palace, horses clopping, page boys shouting to one another in the early morning air. You'll never want for anything. Haven't I told you that? A string of pearls, each as large as the smallest fingernail, with a clasp of gold filigree. Like it. That's Hibernian work, taken in the siege of London. Only later does she notice that between two pearls a knot of silk is stained with blood. She leaves the mixture under the cheesecloth to dry overnight. Madeline walks into the other room, the only other room of the cottage, sits at the table that serves her as a writing desk. She picks up a tin of throat lozenges, how it rattles. She knows without opening it that there are 5 pearls left, and that, after next month's rent, there will only be 4. Confound your enemies, she thinks, peering through the inadequate light, and the wrinkles on her forehead make her look prematurely old. As in a few years, she certainly will be. 2. The Queen. Petals fall from the roses that hang over the stream. Empress Josephine and Claude de Jean, which dislike growing so close to the water. The corner of the garden has been planted to resemble a country landscape in the miniature artificial stream with ornamental fish, a pear tree that has never yet bloomed, bluebells that the gardener plants out every spring. This is the Queen's favourite part of the garden, although the roses dislike her. With her romantically diaphanous gowns and her lisping voice and her poetry, here she comes reciting Tennyson. She holds her arm out, allowing her sleeves to drift out. The slight breeze, imagining she is Elaine the lovable, floating on a river down to Camelot. Hard being a lily maid, now her belly is swelling. She remembers her belly reluctantly, not wanting to touch it, unwilling to acknowledge that it exists. Elaine the lily maid had no belly, surely, she thinks, forgetting that Galahad must have been born somehow. Perhaps he rose out of the lake. She imagines her belly as a sort of cavern where something is growing in the darkness, something that is not hers, alien and quite unwelcomed. Only 12 months ago, 14 actually. She's not very good with numbers. She was Princess Elizabeth of Hibernia, dressed in pink satin, gossiping about the riding master with her friends, dancing with brothers through the ruined arches of Westminster Cathedral, eating too much cake at a 17th birthday party. Now, she does not want to think about this, so it remains at the edges of her mind, where unpleasant things, frogs and slugs, reside. She is a cavern with something growing inside her, something repugnant, something that is not hers, and not the lily maid of Astolat's. She reaches for a rose, an overblown gloire de Jean that, in a fit of temper, pierces her finger with its thorn. She cries out, sucks the blood from her finger, flops down on the bank like a miserable child. The hem of her diaphanous dress begins to absorb the mud at the edge of the water. Excuse me, guys. Now we are on to chapter 3, and this is The Magician. Wolfgang Magus places the rose he picked that morning in his buttonhole and looks at his reflection in the glass, and he frowns at his Master Herr Doctor Ambrosius would have frowned at the scarecrow in faded wool with a drooping grey moustache, a sad figure for a court magician. Gott in Himmel, he says to himself, a childhood habit he kept from nostalgia. But Wolfgang Magus is a reluctant atheist. He knows that it's not God's fault, but the king's, who pays him so little. If the king were to pay him, say, another shilling per week. But no, that too he would send to his sister, dying of consumption at the spa in Bern. His mind turns painfully from the memory of her face, white and drained, which already haunts him like a ghost. He picks up a volume of Goth's poems that he has carefully tied with a bit of pink ribbon and sighs. What sort of present is this for the princess's christening? He enters the chapel with shy, stooping movements. It is full and noisy with court gossip. He proceeds up the aisle, and is swept by a duchess's train of pure dessert, poked by a viscountess of the great, the sword of marquis, smelling of Napoleon's water tangles in his legs, and he almost falls on the baroness, who stares at him through a lorgnette. He sidles through the crush until he comes to a corner of the chapel wall, where he takes refuge. The christening has begun. He supposes he can hear the Archbishop droning in bad Latin, although he can not see much from the corner, but taxidermied birds and heads slick with gaseous oil. Ah, if the Archbishop could have learned from Herr Dr. Ambrosius, his mind wanders, as it often does, to a house in Berlin, a laboratory smelling of strong soap, filled with braziers and alembics, books whose covers have been half-eaten by moths, a stuffed basilisk. He remembers his bed in the attic and his sister, who worked at Herr Doctor's housemaid so he could learn to be a magician. He sees her face on a pillow at the spa in Bern and thinks of her expensive medications. What has he missed? The crowd is moving forward and presents. The presents are being given: a rocking horse with a red leather saddle, a silver tumbler, a cap embroidered by the nuns of Lona. Then another cap by the nuns of Iona. He hides the volume of Goethe behind his back. Suddenly he sees her face he recognizes. One day she came and sat beside him in the garden and asked him about his sister. Her brother had died. He remembers not long before. And as he described his loneliness, her eyes glazed over with tears. Even he, who understands little about court politics, knew she was the king's mistress. She disappears behind the scented marquee, then appears again close to the altar, where the queen, awkwardly holding a linen bundle, is receiving the princess's presents. The king has seen her and frowns through his golden beard. Wolfgang Magus, who knows nothing about the feelings of king towards his former mistress, wonders why he is angry. She lifts a hand in a gesture that reminds him of the Archbishop. What fragrance is this, so sweet, so dark, that makes the brain clear, that makes the nostrils water? He instinctively tabulates orris root, oak gall, rose petal, dung or bat, and a hint of vinegar. Conversations hush, until even the baronets, clustered in a rustic clump at the back of the chapel, are silent. She speaks. This is the gift I give the princess. On her 17th birthday, she will prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. Needless to describe the confusion that follows. Wolfgang Magus watches from its edge, chewing his moustache, worried, unhappy, how her eyes glazed that day in the garden. Someone treads on his toes. Then, unexpectedly, he is summoned. Where is that blasted magician? Gloved hands pushing forward, he stands before the king, whose face has turned unattractively red. The queen has fainted, and a bottle of salts is waved under her nose. The archbishop is holding the princess like a sack of barley. He's accidentally caught. Is this magic, Magus, or just some bloody trick? Wolfgang Magus rubs his hands together. He's not yet stuttered since he was a child, but he answers, yes, your majesty, magic. Sweet, dark, utterly magic. You can smell its power. Then get rid of it. Unmagic it. Do whatever you bloody well have to do. Make it not be. Wolfgang Magus already knows that he will not be able to do so, but he says, without realizing, that he is chewing his moustache in front of a king. Of course, your majesty, of course. And that is the first part of the rose with the 12 petals. We shall continue in the next part, where we will go to the king's story. And the idea is, guys, put all the story together, think about everything, because it's all interlinked. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.